Welcome once again to the S.E.M podcast. Jack and Zach are here again tonight, and we are joined by our friend Jeff Marble. Jeff, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're doing great. We're excited to have you. What part of the world are you calling from tonight?
I am just outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma,
Nice. Okay, very good.
a little town called Claremore. It's actually where the movie Oklahoma was based in. So
Oh, really?
yeah, like the railroad scene. It says Claremore, Oklahoma. I'm like, hey, that's where I live now.
So people just walk through town singing show tunes all day. Is that what you're saying?
No, but when we moved here a couple years ago, we watched it with the kids just so that they get, and we're like, hey, look it, we're famous, but there's no mountains here like in the movie.
That's pretty funny. Well, good. Well, Jeff, you're one of the unique ones that reached out to us, and we're grateful that you did that to come on the podcast. Have you been listening and catching up on a few episodes since you heard about our podcast?
Oh yeah, I've watched half a dozen or maybe 10. So I've been making my way through them. So
Love to hear that. Well, good. Then you're familiar with the format, talking about in advance of the mission. Then we'll talk after mission since you've been home, and then we'll go back and reminisce through the our time in Scotland. So I'll just turn the time to you, Jeff.
all right. Well, I was born in Arizona, then we moved to Utah when I was 10, and that's where I was living in Provo when I got my mission call. Like Derek Cooley, we were in the same MTC group. We got our call this pretty much the same week. It was September 11th, 2001, postmarked and stamped on that day, and it was 2 days after that, on September 13th, I got my call.
Wow.
And so it was fun. My older sister had left on her mission about 3 months before I got my call, and she got called to serve in Ireland.
Oh, wow.
On the mission. And when she got her call, and like ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to go to Scotland. And so when she got her call to Ireland, we're like, well, you're not going to Scotland now because that's way too close to your sister. And so when I remember the day I got the call, and my mom was taking a course up at BYU, and so I went up on campus with my dad, my younger sister, a friend from high school, and we interrupted my mom's class, knock on the door, pull her out in the hallway, and open it, and it was just a huge surprise that I actually got a call to Scotland, Edinburgh, and I was just like over the moon.
Man, that's awesome. We love those kind of stories where you kind of had that foresight of where you wanted to go and it ends up happening. I can tell you I never had that. So
there's a counselor in my bishopric that when I got my call, or before when I was waiting for my call, he's like, where do you want to go? And I'm like, I want to go to Scotland. And he's like, oh, that's beautiful. He worked for study abroad and he'd been there many times. He says, sad part is you never get to go where you want to go. And I'll tell you what, that was a very fun Sunday morning walking up to him on the stand and saying, hey, guess what?
Oh man, that's awesome.
And then he taught me how to pronounce Edinburgh. And he says, you need to say it like bread and butter.
That's good. That's a good little trick. I like that.
Yeah, that was a good tip.
So you entered the MTC January of 2002. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, great. And then got home January of 04?
Yep.
Okay. So you just missed Jack because he came in February of 04, which is awesome. Tell us what you've been up to since you've been home.
I got home. I barely missed the cutoff for school, and so I just started working right away. I got my old job back at KFC. My old manager's like, yeah, we'll have you. So I went and started selling chicken again. And then it was just a few months after that, I'd been dating a few girls, took them out on dates. And it was spring break at BYU, and I went down to St. George to visit President and Sister Wilkinson. And my sister from a student ward said, hey, a group of us from my ward are hiking in Zion. You should come join us. And that's where I met my wife because she was in her ward that weekend. So we started dating a week later, and I don't think I've gone more than 5 days since then without like a few trips here and there, but we were stuck like glue.
That's awesome. I love
Got
that
married a
story.
year later and been together ever since. So we have 4 kids, boy, girl, boy, girl. The oldest is about to turn 16. So I signed him up for driver's ed and I feel old.
Man, Jack and I aren't quite there yet,
Yeah.
but we'll let you
Right
know.
behind you.
Yeah, it's not far away. Goodness.
But my wife was from Texas. So about 2.5 years after we got married, she dragged me down to Texas and we lived there for 9 years and then moved to Oklahoma in 2017. So
Nice. And what do you do for work?
I am a electrical CAD designer.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I just make schematics, wiring diagrams, and whatnot for plants, utilities, whatever. So
That's awesome. Highly necessary in our world today.
mhm.
Well, good. Well, Jeff, that's a great background and learn more about where you've been and what you've been up to. We can go into the mission now. You can start at the MTC if you'd prefer, or you can just jump right into the mission home in Edinburgh. So go from there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. When I left, it was like my first time leaving home, and I didn't get the MTC experience in Provo. I was down the street from it, but I flew halfway across the world right away, and that was fun. There is, I think, 10 or 11 of us in the mission that were going to Scotland in the MTC, and my companion was Elder Jesper Anderson,
Oh
and
yeah.
he ended up. So me and him, we got along great. He was a great companion. Learned a lot from each other. So President Jensen, oh, I love President and Sister Jensen from the MTC. They were the MTC president. She had to go fly back for a week to get some dental work done, and he looked like he was just moping around the whole MTC the whole week because he missed his wife. And I'm like, I need to find a wife like that where when I'm old, and when she came back, he was on cloud 9. He was happy and giddy. It was great. Great memory of them. So
That's cool. Love to hear that.
another memory from the mission home is we had an Italian sister from Italy. She got called to go to serve in Italy, didn't speak any English at all. She could read a little bit, but like after a week, I had found a letter that I had written home saying that she bore her testimony in English. And it was just the most spiritual experience of the whole MTC was watching the gift of tongues right there. Just a week in the MTC and she was already
Wow.
and you want to know that she didn't know English a week earlier. It was fantastic. So
Wow, that is cool. Well, I can assure you that we have been in touch with Jesper, and he'll be on the podcast in the not too distant future. So we're excited to
that would
connect
be
with them.
That is awesome. So man, he was like, I think he was AP before we left.
Okay, nice.
Oh, wow.
So he'll have all the stories in the dirt on the mission at that point, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Jesper, we're looking forward to catching up with you now.
Oh, yeah. Man, when we got off the train, it was really windy. I remember that. Got off the train, and it was just blistering wind, and President Wilkinson's trying to shake our hands from the train and saying, it's not normally this windy. Well, yeah. But it was a memorable day. We get to the mission home, go through all the interviews, and everyone's getting paired off, and President Wilkinson's like, Elder Marble, your trainer's not quite here yet.
Really?
He'd gotten delayed on the train from Glasgow.
Oh, wow.
So he showed up late, but he showed up, Elder Elzinga. He was from Holland.
Nice.
And so funny thing with that is we get on the train, we get back. My first area is Knightswood area in Glasgow. And we're getting back at rush hour at the end of the day, and everybody's on the buses. And we were on this packed bus going down the Great Western Road in Glasgow. And he's like, "Okay, this is our stop." And he pulls the string, and I'm trying to fit my way through the crowds of people getting off the bus. And he has my other suitcase. I have my other suitcase, and I get off the bus, and the bus pulls away. And he's looking at me through the window, like, I'm like, first day in Scotland, and I'm alone on the side of the road in Glasgow. What am I gonna do?
Oh boy.
I'm like, well, okay, the bus is going that way. I'll just walk that way until I see my companion. 5 minutes later, he comes walking up, and he's like, "Well, that's one rule broken already, Elder." Like, it wasn't my fault.
Oh gosh. You're not the only one that's had that happen to them in Scotland, for sure.
Yeah, only one on the first day, I think we've heard. That's
true.
It's pretty funny.
So yeah, we got to the flat, and he's like, "We have an appointment. Let's go." I'm like, "Okay." I don't have any food or anything. It's 7:00 at night. Okay, well, let's go. We went, and we're teaching this lady in a high flat, and she was, the Glasgow brogue, my first day. And she asked a question, and Elder Elzinga looks at me and says, "Go ahead, Elder Marble, answer that question." I'm like, I have no idea what she said.
Oh yeah, we can relate to that, man.
But it was
That's
good.
awesome.
So yeah, Knightswood area, that was cool. I had come into the mission I got a flu the last few days of the MTC. And so I had this like chest cough that just wouldn't go away. Sister Wilkinson kept on giving me remedies and stuff. And Elder Elzinga, he was always wanting to be working no matter what. I remember walking down the street, hacking up a lung, but he's like, "We must keep chapping. We got to keep doing it. This is what it's all about, is chapping." I'm like, "I thought we were supposed to be teaching people." He's like, "We chap enough, we'll find somebody."
That sounds right, yeah. Goodness.
Oh.
Did
So
you
I was
ever
with him
get
for
well
about-
from your flu?
I did. I went. Sister Wilkinson had me go to the doctor, and they says, "Okay, we'll get your chest X-rayed, and they call this hospital, and we'll get an appointment for you." And 2 weeks later, they chest X-rayed, and they're like, "You're fine." I'm like, "Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I was sick."
There you go. Universal healthcare at its finest.
Right. So yeah, and it was fun.
That is fun. Awesome.
I was only with Elder Elzinga for about 6 weeks, one transfer, and he left. And then I had Elder Benyon from Washington, Laird Benyon, and I think I learned more from him than I did from my trainer. He was so knowledgeable and just knew every script, everything. He could spit out references and stuff, and really taught me how to love the people and love the work. And it's not just about the numbers, it's about the people. So
Right.
yeah, we were cruising, and we were really excited to be together and get the work going. I was glad to be finally better from being sick for a few weeks. And then I got transferred, and I transferred from Glasgow to Irvine first. Irvine in the coastal zone. And that's where I met, me and Chad Elder Van Leuven served together there. He was in Kilwinning, and I was in Irvine, both junior companions. It was fun because there was 8 missionaries in that ward.
Oh wow.
In the Irvine ward. There's 2 sisters that served in Saltcoats, and the 2 Kilwinning elders. And then there's 2 sets of elders in Irvine. One was the zone leaders, and then us.
Wow.
So
That's a lot of missionaries.
yeah. And it was shortly after that we had a zone conference that President Wilkinson said that they're downsizing our mission from 170 to 140 over
Holy
the next
cow.
year. And so he says that's about 1 area per zone that we're going to be closing.
Wow, that's a big change.
Yeah. My companion in Irvine was Elder Cox, and he was a hoot. And the kids had a blast whenever they'd see our name tags, Elder Marble and Elder Cox. and just thought it was the funniest thing. You know, these little 12-year-old Neds that would giggle at our name tags.
Oh boy.
But Elder Cox is like, I'm like, he was only a few months away from going home. I'm like, we'll have to keep in touch. He's like, I doubt it. I'm gonna go off the grid when I get home, and then move to Alaska, and no one's ever gonna hear from me again. And I haven't. He must have done it because I haven't seen him or heard from him ever again.
Wow. Do you remember where he was
tried looking
from?
him up. He was from Wyoming.
Oh, okay.
But he said he was going to move to Alaska to be a mountain man up there.
I guess to each their own, right?
Right.
You've just given us a
And
challenge. We're gonna find him.
Yeah, we gotta hunt him down. Get him on the podcast.
Right.
Tyler, if you're listening, we want you to come on the podcast.
Right. That'd be great. Me and him had fun. We had a lot of fun in Irvine, me and him. But we served together for 3.5 months, because we had an emergency move 3 weeks before transfers where they closed our area because they had a missionary go home from Edinburgh. And so they took the missionary from Kilmarnock from Elder Weeks and moved him to Edinburgh. And so President Wilkinson's like, we're having you close that area. So clean out the flat. We're returning it to the landlord. I'll tell you what, there's 2 times in my mission I had to clean out a flat from previous missionaries, years of missionaries, and it was not fun. So much. The landlord made us come back and do a second cleaning because they didn't like the first one.
Oh my word. What did you expect?
That was a cool flat.
Oh goodness.
But it had been in the mission for years, and it was right on the Bank Street in downtown. So 2:00 in the morning, when the bars and pubs closed, the streets would just be filled with loud, drunk people. And we would get up and just watch and make fun of them from the window.
Oh, ideal location for a missionary flat, definitely.
It was.
That brings back
President
memories right
Wilkinson
there.
was like, we should probably move you guys from that flat. It's probably not the best location, because there's a lot of times the drunks would be pounding on us doors saying, hey, you Mormons, we know you're here.
Should have gone out and started passing out pass along cards.
There was a time where the missionaries had a big, huge poster board in the windows advertising the Book of Mormon to give them a call. We gave them the flat number, and it was like, so like everyone in Irvine had that flat number because
Oh my
of
gosh.
those missionaries.
Oh boy.
But no, it was a good area. Great ward. And then so we had a tri-partnership in Kilmarnock for 3 weeks. Me, Elder Cox, and Elder Weeks. And then Elder Cox moved, and I was with Elder Weeks for David Weeks for a transfer and a half. And then Elder Clay Tuckett was my companion after Elder Weeks. He was my first Utah companion. So we got to reminisce about Utah for a while.
Love it.
But yeah, and then
that was still in Irvine, correct?
Kilmarnock.
Kilmarnock.
Oh, Kilmarnock, okay.
Yeah. There was a family in the Kilmarnock area we loved. They were the Kings, and I still keep in touch with her. Sister King was, when I had gotten there, she had only been a member a year, but she absolutely loved the missionaries. And she would call my mom when we'd have a dinner appointment and just says, hey, the phone's for you. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to be talking to my family, Sister King.
Oh, man.
There were those members that just, they said, hey, I made a phone call to this person. You should probably talk to them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It happened more often than I'm sure many of us missionaries wanted that to happen.
She's great. And she had an address book with the flat numbers of most of the mission. So no matter where missionaries that were her favorites were transferred to, she would call them and talk to them. And it's just like, Sister King, we can't do this.
Just keeping tabs on everybody, huh?
Oh, she's funny. And I'm still friends with her on Facebook, and she's funny still. So
It's great. Love it.
I guess that was the first year of my mission, and I had 4 baptisms at this point, and the first 3 were all in my first area in Glasgow. They were one baptism from Africa. He had fled Africa as a he was 15 in Uganda and he joined the military, and he lied about his age. He was 15, and he was put in charge of some commanders, and eventually they had a regime change, and he had to book it because he was part of the old regime, and so he sought refuge. And the last, like, he had gotten baptized. He was fantastic. His name was Okwiri. Him and his wife was from Rwanda, and she had survived the Rwanda genocide.
Wow.
Remarkable story. The last I heard, I'd gotten back to the Glasgow zone at a year mark. I was in Cumbernauld, and I had checked in with the Glasgow elders, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he had lost his asylum, so they were going to kick him out."
Holy cow.
So I have no idea what happened to him after that.
That's crazy.
But the other couple that was in Glasgow was from Afghanistan. This cute little family, husband, wife, and 3 kids. They had fled Afghanistan because they had converted to Christianity, and that was when the Taliban was at its peak. And they had to flee during the night and hitchhike across Europe because they believed in Jesus Christ, that he was the true. And they had been taught by the Jehovah's Witnesses until we came knocking on their door, and they thought we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and so they let us in. And then they're like, "Wait, this isn't the same people," but they're like, "We like you better."
Worked out.
Yeah.
They did. We got them. We had to order a Farsi Book of Mormon for them, and they had read it in like days. We'd given it, and they had read the whole thing. Wow. And they just like, "This is true. This is the Christ we were looking for."
Man, that's incredible.
It's really cool.
My 4th baptism didn't actually complete because the boiler in Irvine broke that day, and so it was cold, and the 9-year-old, 8 and 9-year-old cousins were getting baptized, and she had this huge white dress that would not go under the water. So she fled the font crying.
Oh no,
man.
And frozen probably
really
too, right?
Really cold.
Ugh.
Her cousin, Elder Cox, really made sure he went under with the first try, so he was thoroughly baptized.
Oh boy,
it was funny. But then I went to Cumbernauld. That's where I became a senior companion. That was a great area. I was told it was the concrete jungle. So,
yep, I spent 6 months there as well.
Yeah. That's the second area I had to clean out a flat, because when I got there, the flat we had was just a tip. It was just absolutely trashed. The bathroom floor had rotted, and so the landlord had pulled it up, but they hadn't put anything else down, so it was just subfloor, and there was drug dealers outside. It was not in a nice part of Cumbernauld.
Oh boy.
So we went, me and my companion, Elder Lappalainen, we went searching for a new apartment or flat, and he's like, I've been here 4 or 5 months living in this trash, and now we get to move. I'm like, you should have said something to President Wilkinson. That's all you got to do.
Oh boy.
But yeah, that was a good one. And then he left, and I got Elder Ryan Doan.
Yeah.
So me and him, we killed it. 3 months together. We did not want to transfer because we were having a great experience together. We were teaching people. The branch had just become a ward. They got made a ward when I was there, and it was fired up. We were fired up and ready to go
Yeah,
when I left there. So
that sounds incredible.
Yeah.
yeah, you should get Ryan on the podcast. He is a spiritual giant. I'll tell you that. He fantastic guy. So
I've reached out to him. I just need Ryan to respond. So, Ryan, when you listen to this, know that your inbox is full of Zach Hewlett. Please send me a message. Love to have you.
it might be in your junk folder because that's where my first email went.
there you go. That could be the case. That's for sure.
But Cumbernauld was good. There's a family there that I know now aren't members of the church, but at the time they were, the Armour family. I don't know if you ever met the Armours.
Yeah. Yep. Big
So,
family.
Big family. We had fun with them. They're now fully Catholic. I think one of their sons is a Catholic priest in Omaha now. I'm still friends on Facebook with them and keep in touch.
Wow.
But they had a falling out, I think, around 2007 with some leadership of the church there. And so, and they went
The term as you
Catholic.
listen to the podcast is hammer time, probably. Having gone home in January of 2007, everything kind of shifted after I left. So we'll just say it was that. That would be my guess anyway.
Yeah. After that, I went to Dundee with Greg Slater.
Nice.
He was from Orem, Utah area, the Utah County. Same with me, but he was funny. We were talking about one day about the spirits of animals lined up at our judgment, and he's like, "I'm doomed because me and my buddies would go out in high school into the West Desert and just shoot every animal we could see for no reason." And I'm just like, "Oh wow, good luck."
What a memory. That's amazing.
The things you talk about while chapping, right?
I know. We talked about a lot of things. That poor guy, he had bad allergies. I remember his parents had gotten a prescription from his home doctor and sent it over for a Kenalog shot for his allergies that he normally gets, but they don't do that in the UK. The doctor just said, "Nope, sorry, you just have to, that stuff is terrible for you. You shouldn't be taking it."
So, man.
Oh boy.
That was, yeah. We were together for 3 months there. We had interesting run-in. We had knocked on this door, and this guy had answered the door, and he wanted to talk to us. He invited us in, but we could tell he was very confrontational. And so we were talking to him. We had met with him a couple times. And then we were on a bus on a Sunday, and in Dundee, they had two wards that met in the same building. So ours was the afternoon. So we're on the buses in the morning with nothing to do. And there is a less active member or a previous member who had his name removed from the church. He was on the bus. And so we were talking to him. And he's like, "You want to come to my church?" And we're like, "Sure, let's go to your church. We have time." And so we went to his church, and the preacher there was this guy who we had knocked on a couple of days earlier. He was the preacher there.
Oh my gosh.
And so we thought that was kind of funny. It was a born again Christian church, hellfire and damnation, everything. And he spent the whole sermon warning the congregation against a member of their congregation that didn't agree with him.
Holy
And
cow.
how she's being led away by the devil and all this stuff. And we're like, wow, I thought we're here to learn about Christ. But another coincidence is within that next week, we were not chapping on doors, and we had run into this lady who he was preaching about.
My gosh.
And she used to be a member of our church. And she had left the church a few years earlier and taken like a dozen people with her, including the guy that took us to this other church. But she got in an argument with the preacher, and he didn't want her there anymore. And she started coming back to
Man.
our church
What a
afterwards.
saga.
So it was like back and forth, and it was just like me and Elder Slater. We knew we were only God knows where to go and what to
Golly.
who we needed to talk to.
That's cool.
Another fun memory from the Dundee area is our flat was owned by the Bishop Campbell. And so we were reading our scriptures one morning doing our companionship study downstairs. And we had noticed that the second bedroom had a leak coming down. So we put a bucket under there, and we were going to, okay, we need to call Bishop and say there's a leak in the attic. So we're doing our study, and we hear this loud noise upstairs, and we go up there, and the whole ceiling in that second room had collapsed.
Oh my gosh.
Because there was a pipe that had leaked and just soaked the insulation, and then it just got so heavy that it just fell through. So
Oh
we
my
spent
word.
a day cleaning the bedroom while Bishop hired him, and another ward member came and fixed the leak and had to fix the bedroom. Took about a week or two, but
Was
At least
that,
you knew the
that
landlord would
wasn't
respond.
it's true. Was that the room
yeah,
that
he
you
was
guys,
there. He was there within 30 minutes, so he was like on it.
that wasn't the room that you slept in, it was just the second
No.
bedroom in there, right?
We had it as a personal study room. So we had 2 desks in there, but we were downstairs at the time when it just collapsed. So
Man, I guess there's some fortune to that too, that you didn't get to study in earlier than you usually did, I suppose.
yeah, because when personal study we saw the leak, and we have companionship study downstairs, and that's when it fell.
Holy
Yeah.
cow.
But they remodeled the whole room, and then we moved our beds into it because it was a nicer room now. So
Very nice.
And then Elder Slater left, and I got Elder Brooks, T.R. Brooks, and he was a great guy. Absolutely, he was getting ready to go home. He only had a few weeks. He only had like 1 transfer left when he got to me. And I was like, oh, I may end up in an area longer than 4 months. But I didn't, because they just whitewashed the area and they moved me anyways when he left.
Oh, well.
And I was like, the Dundee ward, the Dundee First Ward, their building was right around the corner from our flat, but it was under renovations at the time. So it was under construction the whole time I was there, and they had opened it up a week or 2 after I left. And I was like, instead of trekking all the way down to the Bingham Terrace ward building for 4.5 months, and then the building that was literally around the corner from our flat opened up right after we left. So just the timing. That was a great ward. I love the Dundee ward. A cool story about Dundee was my mom, back when she was in high school back then, early 1960, 61, she had a pen pal in Scotland, and he is from Dundee. So 44 years later, her son goes on a mission, and so I looked up the family, and they were members of the church, but come to find out that he had left the church, and then he had cancer, and he had passed away.
Wow.
Before a couple of years before that, but they had gotten his work done in the temple and everything. So there's lots of little connections here and there that just, I know it wasn't just a coincidence.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's pretty cool.
Love it.
And then my last area was Glen Rothes.
Very good.
It's my
And
last
I
area
served-
too.
Really?
Yeah, good place to end up.
Oh yeah, I love that area. And I don't know, the Browns in Glenrothes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sheena Ann Brown, and they have a pine tree there. They had one at their house. I don't know if they showed you the missionary tree.
No, I don't recall that.
So the Christmas before I went home, so a few weeks before we went home, my companion, who was Elder Jones, who was in my MTC group, his dad was working in Iraq and he was going to be gone for a few months and wasn't going to be able to see him come home. So President Vreens had said, yes, your dad can stop by and see you for one day. So his dad came and he thought we needed a Christmas tree. So we bought a potted tree and put it in our flat. And then afterwards, I'm like, it's not a dead tree, it's in a pot. So we took it to the Browns and they planted it. And then she sent me a picture of it every year. And like, even in like 2 or 3 years ago, I was talking to her and she's like, it's still there. I took a picture of it and it's a big tree now. She called it her missionary tree.
That's cool.
Wow, that is neat. That
You
thing's
got
got to
it.
be massive now.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
I actually
She doesn't
through
live at the house
podcast-
anymore, but she.
Yeah, I was able to talk to her, and Allie passed away, but she's still
Yep.
doing good. So
Yep.
Cool.
They came to Utah, the general conference, after I gotten home. So Ellie and Sheena and Fiona came out. So I got to show them Utah.
nice.
Cool. Where was Elder Jones from, your companion?
He was from Texas.
Texas. All right.
So
Very cool.
he's still there. I see him on Facebook every so often. So.
Very nice.
Dan Jones is his name. But before him, I had Aaron Sherman was the first guy, missionary companion I had in the area. Had him for 6 weeks, and then Elder Jones came. And I was actually going to extend my mission 6 weeks. I had talked to President Vreens. He's like, yes, let's keep you here for 6 weeks. So I was going to trunk out Elder Jones, and then I was going to be on for another 6 weeks. And they had flight arrangements and everything figured out. And then the December interviews, he'd sit down and he says, I got a letter from the area presidency, Elder Marble, and he says they're discouraging elders and sisters extending their mission unless there's an extreme reason why you need to extend. If you just want to stay, they discourage it. They say your release date is just as inspired as your call date. So unless you have a good reason, I'm going to have to send you home in January. But it's up to you. I'll let you decide. So I ended up going home on time. So they had to change my flight plans from 9 weeks out to 3 weeks.
Man.
I ended up getting an earlier flight than the rest of the group. So I got home 2 hours earlier than the 7 other missionaries in our group.
So your companion went home at the same time, though?
Yep. Both me and Elder Jones went home at the same time. We cleaned up the flat, left the area book with notes, and our top investigator, sweet old lady, Margaret McBain. She was so close to baptism. I don't know if she was. Did you know Margaret McBain?
Yeah, I believe she joined and fed us every week.
Yeah.
So
She had gotten baptized 2 weeks after I had left, I believe. So
yeah, we heard that she passed away too, but she was definitely still feeding us every week. She would actually see us on the street occasionally, and she didn't drive, but she would be taking a taxi, and she'd make the taxi driver pull over and give us a ride to wherever we needed to go.
I remember when we knocked on her door and she let us in, and her little Yorkie dogs just got hair all over us. But she was a hoot to teach, and we got a couple members there helping us teach her for months. And then she was like, she finally accepted to be baptized. But so that was cool.
Yeah.
I remember when I found out she had passed away, because when I had gotten home, I had kept in touch with her on MSN Messenger, instant messaging her all the time.
Yeah.
And I saw her online one day, and I was saying, Margaret, how's it going? And she's like, actually, this is Margaret's daughter. She had passed away. And I'm like, oh, it was hard. But
Yeah, it would have been. Goodness.
That's cool. You're the one who met her. That's really cool.
Yeah, we love hearing those.
She was
stories.
actually a previous. I think we found her in the area book. Is how we found her. She had been taught years before, and we were looking up old addresses at the time. So
there you go. Cool.
That is awesome. Very cool. So you came home all the wiser. That's great.
Yep. President Breen's last day says, "Okay, Elder Marble, I'm no longer in charge of finding your next companion. That's your job, and I want you to do it really quick, okay?"
Oh man.
I went to his homecoming and I says, "Hey, President Breen's, I found my companion within 6 months of getting home." So
Nice way to return and report. That's incredible. That's very well done. I love that. Well, Jeff, do you have any other specific memories that you have of President and Sister Wilkinson or President and Sister Vrains that come to mind as we've been talking?
Well, President Wilkinson, I've met with him quite a few times since then, but like I had chronic migraines my whole life. And so when I had gotten on my mission and I had told him, I'm like, I get these migraines, and the first 3 months were pretty bad. And he'd given me several blessings, but I remember in an interview once, he says that he had discussed me with the area presidency and they suggested sending me home for medical reasons. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I may only get 50 hours out of him, but that's 50 hours more than I'd get if I send him home.
Man, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah, I had a great love and respect for the Wilkinsons. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
Sister Wilkinson would always just talk your ear off. And she would just mother you so much, especially like if you had health problems, she was there for you. She would mother you. There was a time in my first area, like after my flu thing, there was a pull-up bar in the flat and I was doing pull-ups one P day, and the pull bar had fallen, had come loose, and I had hurt my back. And I'm like, and Elder Elzinga's like, "Don't call Sister Wilkinson." I'm like, "Why?" "She will make us stay home, and it's my last P day here, and I don't want to stay in the flat. Don't call Sister Wilkinson." So I spent the day in Borders bookstore with him in Glasgow in absolute misery because my lower back was just killing me. I had called President, I think it was President Yates of the mission presidency that day. He's like, "You can call him. Don't call the Wilkinsons."
Oh my gosh. Oh boy.
And he's like, "Yeah, it sounds like you bruised your tailbone, Elder Marble. So just ice and rest. That's all you can do."
Oh boy.
But yeah, don't call Sister Wilkinson. She'll just make us stay home. I'm like, "I think I scarred you, Elder Elzinga. I'm sorry."
That's so good. Any memories of President Sister Vrains?
First mission conference, Sister Vreens is like, she was going over flat care and cleanliness and stuff, and she had I brought a toilet brush, and she's like, "And what is this for, mission elders and sisters?" And one of the English sisters says, "It's for scrubbing the loo." And she's like, "The what?" "Scrubbing the loo." She's like, "What's the loo?"
Oh my gosh. Oh,
It's fantastic. Apparently, they had a few gaffes starting.
Yeah, they were so great. I saw the discipline President Vreens a couple times when shortly after we got cell phones in the mission, and he was really reluctant to let them put cell phones in the mission. But it was the first zone conference after we had gotten cell phones, and he had a stack of cell phone bills up on the podium, and he had picked them up, and you could see where there's highlights. He's like, elders and sisters, I see every number you call and how long you spend on the call. And then he starts reading out times of like 40-minute calls, 3-hour calls, and he says, this 5 hours and 30 something minutes.
Oh,
And it's not even a number in your area.
oh no.
That's a call
like,
out there.
Stop it now.
That was somebody calling their girlfriend. You know, that's what it was.
It was because that same missionary 3 days before, or the week before you were supposed to go home, got in trouble because him and another missionary decided to take a train from Aberdeen down to Glasgow and do a double date with a couple girls.
Oh.
And he was saying, I wanted to send him home. 3 days before he was officially released, sent home dishonored. But Sister Breens talked him out of it and says, just send him home. But he did. I'm just like, why do you do this, El?
Do you want to call them out so that they can come on and set the record straight? Because that's the purpose of this podcast. Put them on blast a little bit.
We may have heard the other side of that story actually from, well, at least another side of the story from the zone leaders who were waiting for him. I'm not sure.
Right. That's right. Oh my gosh.
The whole mission heard about that story. I mean, it spread like wildfire. At zone conferences, they would all get together and share the gossip.
And that's what ended up in the Harvester the next month.
Right.
Goodness.
I remember when they raised the bar because it was about halfway through my mission that Elder Ballard had done his talk about raising the bar. And I was like, well, there's a whole lot of missionaries here that would not have made the cut.
Oh, goodness. That's great. Well, Jeff, we really appreciate you taking time to come on and chat with us about your mission experience. You've named some great missionaries that we need to reach out to and get in touch with. I mean, apart from a handful of people you've mentioned already, we haven't talked to any of them. So is there anybody else in specific that you'd like to call out and tell them, hey, it's time for you to get on here?
We've already talked to Sister McConkey. She was in my last area. She was funny.
Yeah.
So I watched her podcast when she was on. Found out we have the same number of kids, about the same age, boy, girl, boy, girl. I thought, that's funny.
That is cool.
Sister Jones, Kelly Jones, you should call her. I think you've mentioned Rebecca Longa. She has an incredible story. I served with her probably between her and Sister Jones the longest. There was a couple areas that we overlapped quite a few times.
Okay.
So, but Sister Longa, she has an incredible story about her first area in Saltcoats. So,
okay, cool. Yeah, we'll check in on that. Anybody else?
Well, you can try to find Tyler Cox, but I doubt I've done internet sleuthing for him, but I haven't found him yet.
If you have a fairly good understanding that he's in Alaska, I bet I can find it.
He was dead set. He was going to find a native girl that just doesn't want to go anywhere and find a cabin in Alaska and cut off all connection to everybody else.
Wow.
I've put this down. He's on my hunting list. I will get in touch with him. I promise.
Oh, but he was great.
I love it.
David Weeks. I don't know if you've reached out to him. He was a great companion.
I haven't, but I will.
He was from Idaho, so.
Okay.
And then Dan Jones, me and him trunked each other out. He's in Houston, so.
Okay. I will make those all my personal next attempts for sure.
Okay.
Well, Jeff, again, we really appreciate you making time to come on and chat with us about fond memories of our time in Scotland. More than anything, we just want to express to you our love. We're so grateful that you are our brother in Scotland. I mean, even though none of us overlapped or spent time with each other, we still have that same camaraderie that comes from spending time in similar places and knowing the wonderful people in that land. So thank you again. We really appreciate you and love you.
Hey, thanks. I love you too.
Awesome. Well, we'll say goodnight to you. We'll bid you cheerio, and we'll be in touch very soon.
All right.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheerio.